Hi, and welcome to another episode of Disrupt Your Now, the show for entrepreneurs who are sick and tired of checking off the boxes and want to check off their own boxes. Tonight, my guest is Jennifer Banton, and she is definitely creating her own boxes. She is a co founder of Lucid Studio, and I really wanted to have her own tonight because a few weeks ago I noticed her comment on another post of mine that she had just gone through a hiccup that she turned into a great pivot. So, Jennifer, welcome to the show. And I'm so excited to have you talk with us about all the pivots you've had through the years.
Oh my gosh, so many of them. Well, I'm excited to be here. Thank you for reaching out and having me on.
Yeah. So, tell me and the audience about your background, where you came from, and how you got to where you are today.
Oh gosh, where do I start? So my background is in package design, and I went to school for photography. We'll start there with pivots. I actually went to school for photography, and they introduced a graphics program that year that I started, and I found myself in the computer labs more than in the
Mhm.
photo labs. So I shifted my direction and got into graphics and design. And where I went to school, packaging was really big. And so I started working for printers, and I got, you know, into printing, and it was all around packaging. And where I lived in Cincinnati, again, packaging was huge. And so
Yeah.
any agency that you worked for, it was a packaging agency. And so the first agency, like the first real agency I worked for was packaging design. And I remember starting bringing all my experience in prepress into
Mhm.
that doing production. And
Oh,
it was
cool.
from there that I actually like realized, now that I look back, I realized how I stacked my career of
Yeah.
starting at the bottom, the end product. How
Hmm.
does it come to life? I got into design. I realized that I'm not only very technical oriented, but I'm creative,
Hmm.
and I can blend those and do design and bring it to life and do all that takes to bring it to life. So I started doing design. That led me working with some big CPG companies. Like some of the bigger brands that I worked on were like Colgate and Dell and all of that. And that led me to working on site for clients. And I
Hmm.
moved out to Arizona. I worked on Dial brands. Henkel, they owned Dial brands. And that's what led me out here to Arizona.
Okay.
And again, just kind of stacking experience along the way. And if we want to talk about pivots, like
Hmm.
all of that, they were kind of like I had no intention of moving to Arizona. That was something that kind of on a whim, I just
Hmm.
decided to do. I saw a job opportunity, but that introduced me to Amy Rhodes, my another co-founder of Lucid Studio, my business partner.
Hmm.
And that's where we met 15 years ago and had a dream back then that we were going to do something big together.
Oh, that's great that 15 years later, y'all are actually doing it.
And along the way, it was like, we're going to do something. We're going to do something. And
Mhm.
that proves when the time is right, things happen.
Yeah.
And we both from there went on doing different things, gaining different experience, kind of like parallel pathing in some way. We got
Mhm.
into private brand in different areas. So we both actually had really interesting learning paths in where we went. I went into account management and client relationship.
Okay.
Yeah, and she went on to the creative path. And so for me, all of the experience that I had, we talked about job titles. I gave myself like an operations job title because what else? Like, that's the only thing that wouldn't box
Yeah.
me in. It allows me to use the breadth of experience that I had.
Yeah.
And for her, she's creative strategy and brand strategy, head of creative, and we just balance each other out so well. But yeah, through many years of doing different roles and different things, I am led to where I am today. And so leading Lucid Studio with Amy, and we're under our parent company, Marketing by Design, who's led by Maria Dubac, who I worked for her for 7 years.
Oh, okay.
Doing lots of different things. So we
Mhm.
talked earlier about needing to kind of bounce around and do things. And I got to do that in her business and learn a lot and all of that. So just with Lucid Studio, we brought it all together. And
Mhm.
yeah, we have an awesome goal and mission that we're on.
I love how you and Amy have your parallel tracks and you have things that overlap, but then you went a little bit in one direction with the account management and so forth, and she went a little bit in the other direction, but it gives y'all the perfect combination to be able to work together.
Oh my gosh, we say that all the time. We are like the perfect balance of each other. And
Mhm.
we both right, left brained, but where we weight each other, we come together in the middle and have just such a beautiful understanding of our strengths and how to support each other. And like, if you've ever worked with somebody that you just flow with,
Yeah.
it's just amazing. It feels
That's
great.
great. Nothing better. And I also love that you talked about stacking because it reminds me of development, full stack.
Yep.
So for people out there that don't know, a full stack developer is people that know different languages stack on each other so they can do it all. And so, but I love that you use that phrase
Well,
stacking.
I had a little experience. So on the marketing by design side, when I
Mhm.
worked for Maria, she's got an arm of her business, Workflow by Design, and I led that. It's a software development team, and I led that team, and I led a lot of business decisions around that company. So I was in software development
Yeah.
uh, for, gosh, 4 years. So maybe that's where it slipped up and came out.
Well, and that it's so great because you have a wide variety of experience, but a variety of different types of clients. And that is so important, like the different sizes of companies, because the way they work, the huge companies work differently than the small companies. So it's great that you've gotten that experience with all different sizes.
Yeah. And right now we are working with like local small startups, and we're working with bigger, even retailer size
Mhm.
companies. And we are able to be flexible in the way that we work with them. And, the smaller companies get the benefit of our experience
Yeah.
working with the bigger companies because we bring that and we move faster because of that
Yeah.
with them, and get to educate and bring them along the way for what's to come for them when they get bigger, right? And
Yeah,
so
that's
we're trying to
great.
give them an experience too of working bigger. But I like it because we get to be nimble and quick with some of these,
Mhm.
in the range of companies that we work with. Actually, we get to
Yeah.
be flexible in how we work, which is so important. And uh,
Mhm.
I didn't realize that all the way through my career, the value of being able to be and have that flexibility in how you work.
Yeah. Do y'all work with a certain type of product or is it all different kinds? Like I know you mentioned Dial and some others. So is it mostly products like that or food and beverage or a real mixture?
Yeah, so we pretty much any category, consumer products, and our focus is, and I mentioned to you earlier, brands that benefit people, pets, and the planet.
Yeah, I
So
love that.
we're looking in like the natural organic space, products that have better ingredients,
Mhm.
or they have a mission to um, reduce plastics, and they have some sort of benefit to our planet, our world, and people. So
Mhm.
really open to any category that, and
That mhm.
food and beverage in that space is pretty big right now, and there's just a lot of emerging companies. But Amy's background is in pet. So she worked at PetSmart for a number of
Oh,
years, leading the private brand. So pet is near and dear to us to work in that space as well. So, but we
oh.
really, cross everything.
Do y'all do any sensory stuff with with the packaging design? Do you incorporate any of that? I'm just asking because I have a friend who's blind that is a consultant for that, for
Yeah. So,
product
and
packaging and stuff.
yeah, we just were at a conference this year that there's so learning more and more about it and how
Mhm.
to design for that and the impact that you can have too on design. So
Yeah.
not even just for hearing impaired and visual impaired and all of that, kind of things, whatever, everything you're doing, but packaging design, like how things are opened and
Right.
I'm not going to get the stats right, but there were some statistics that we learned about, like we will all become disabled as we age,
Mhm. Yeah.
and of mobility, we will lose mobility, we will
Mhm.
lose sight in some way, and as we age, and
Yeah.
so that's something that we are learning more and more. So as we get into the space and we get into like sustainability, that's an aspect
Mhm.
of sustainability that people don't think of and talk
Yeah.
about. Like sustainability of our planet isn't just packaging materials too. It's for our people. Like we have to
Mhm.
sustain ourselves, and
Yeah.
how do we
It's
do
like
that?
our businesses need to be sustainable. Everything, we need to think through
Everything.
everything.
Yeah, and it's easy. I think in my world, I see and hear so much around sustainability of specific to materials and that packaging things, but it's a good reminder that sustainability is everywhere. You can
Yeah.
apply and think about sustainability literally in every aspect. So
Mhm.
of your
Well,
life.
Hobie, my friend, he works with sensory product packaging design and product design, not just from the accessibility angle, but he uses his heightened senses to help, like, with the feel and the sound and the smell
Oh,
and
yeah.
everything of the packaging. Cars, that new car smell when you get in and the
Yes.
way the
Oh
leather
my
feels and all
gosh.
that. So,
Well,
yeah,
when
he works with a lot of food and beverage companies, not just food and beverage, but a lot of
yeah.
them are.
Oh my gosh. I mean, that's just such a part of our experience in anything. And
Mhm.
that sensorial, like you open something, you remember the smell of something, or when
Yeah,
you an experience of walking into a store, like the scents that are there, you remember those stick in
yeah.
your head of all
Really
around.
quickly, Cheryl says, "Hi."
Oh, hi, Cheryl.
So tell us about the hiccup. So, in the post that Jennifer did, she said that it's thundering here. I hope I don't lose my internet.
Oh my gosh.
Jennifer, you said that you had a hiccup
You had a
that
hiccup.
you were able to turn into a pivot and do great things. So tell us about that and how you don't have to get into as little or as much detail as you want, but kind of what happened and how you were able to turn something that could have been a negative into a positive.
Yeah, so I talked about workflow by design and marketing by design earlier, and that's where I worked for 7 years prior to
Mhm.
Lucid and prior to a previous experience. And I was getting, if Maria's watching this, she'll
Mhm.
laugh at me, but I was getting itchy. And that's what I always use that term when I feel boxed in or I feel
Mhm.
like I'm ready for something different. I was kind of getting itchy in what I was doing. And um, I ended up leaving and I
Mhm.
went down a different path. And, you mentioned about, making lemonade out of lemons. And I tend to, in any situation that I'm in, I will be the optimist. I will find good in everything, even if
Mhm.
it's I always use the term like seemingly bad. It's seemingly bad. Things aren't really, they're what you make of them. And
Mhm.
they can be seemingly bad in the moment, and things can be, decisions can feel like you made a wrong decision or you made a wrong turn, but you have to come out of that. And I did that. I was, this is where conversation started leading with Amy about, okay, this is our time, and let's go out and do our own thing. And I realized that I think throughout my career, I've always sought and was seeking like mentorship in anywhere that I'm at. I'm always seeking like mentorship, and I realized too, like sometimes when and maybe I was doing this, you put a lot of pressure on people when maybe they're not seeking to be mentors all the time, or they're going through one thing, and I think something that I realized was I need to just carve my own way. And I think I've done that through my career, but I really sat and I was like, okay, I need to just do my own thing and truly just trust myself,
Uh-huh.
trust that I know what I'm doing and I know that I'm going to do great things. And if you surround yourself with people, like-minded people that share values, and you're able to like build a business model around those values and around living your truth, then you can do great things. And I think like leaving MBD, which was so sad to do. I was there for a really long time, and
Mhm.
I had a great team. I had like a great experience there. And so that was really hard to do. And I call it a hiccup because I'm back but I'm back in my true authentic self. Now I can give from the point that I couldn't give before.
Yeah.
So I call it a hiccup because I returned back, and it was a little blip of, okay, I had to go out and maybe face some things and learn some things. And
Mhm.
in a lot of ways, I feel like a lot of us learn this way. We learn by what not to do, or
Yeah.
we learn from experiences. It's, a little bit, not to get like Joseph Campbell, but there's the hero's journey of like, you have to venture off and you need to go experience
Yeah.
these things that you're going to fight and have battles with and all of this.
Mhm.
You always return, and you return stronger, you return more grounded, you return kind of knowing who you are and what you want out of a situation. And I mentioned to you earlier, just feeling blessed that I was able to come back and be accepted into this new light, and that we were able to form Lucid and carve a new path
Mhm.
together, and kind of come back. So yeah, I use hiccup because it felt like a little hiccup. And
Well, you talked about trusting yourself, and that can be one of the hardest things to do. And a lot of people feel like the people that they look at as being the most successful, they feel like, oh, they would never feel like that. But that's not true. People at every single level feel like that. They have self doubts. They always have those moments of uh, imposter syndrome or whatever. And so to be able to trust yourself like that is a huge step.
And we'll always go through those feelings.
Yeah.
We're human. We're gonna experience that doubt. But I think one of the things that I've truly recognized is like your environment and who you surround yourself with matters so much.
Yeah.
And working with Amy and having the relationship that we have together, and us being able to serve clients the way that we do, that shows too to other people. Like that's huge. And it's who you work with, it truly does matter. And
Yeah.
are you able to shine and be your best self, and are you encouraging others to do the same, and do you have that
Mhm.
environment to like allow people to trust themselves and feel safe to bring themselves in? And we have
Yeah.
that, and it's great.
It's also great that you don't just have your mission of what you do, but you really understand who you want to do it for. And that's so important because a lot of people in business are just like, I don't care who my clients are. I just need to make money. And this is
Right.
what I do. Like, let's say it's design or whatever. This is what I do. And I'll do it for anybody. I just want to make money. And then they end up working with people that they don't like or that they don't respect, or they have different values and all that. And I
Yeah.
love that y'all are aligning your business and your mission with clients who share your values.
That's important because you remove that like that resistance that you have when you don't have those shared values with people, and you
Mhm.
remove that, the questioning. And so when you can like remove those layers or those veils between how you interact and have
Mhm.
relationships with the clients that you work with, I mean, it's really awesome to feel that.
Yeah.
And there's a trust too. You get it,
Yeah.
you understand. And um,
Mhm.
yeah, it feels good to know that, and to, and I think our clients feel the same way too. And
Mhm.
that's great.
Before we came on the show, we were talking, and you were talking about being bored and that you hate being bored. And so you're one of those, I'm like that too. So you're one of those kinds of people that after a certain period of time, you've got to do some kind of little pivot, do something a little bit different.
That's where the itchiness comes in.
That's
That's where I
right.
know
Yeah.
if I'm getting itchy, okay, I gotta
Mhm.
start something new, or shift something. And I think that's like understanding that in yourself, and
Yeah.
like, sometimes, I don't know, maybe other people get the itch, but they don't know what it is, and so they don't do anything about it. And it's
Yeah.
like,
And a
well,
lot of people are all they wanna do is know they have a job and go and come home and that's it, and that's fine if that's what they want, but that that just sucked my soul out of my body when I first got out of college and was working at big corporations like that and everything. So, it really is important that you can, listen and understand the feelings that you have inside.
well, and it's part of like, I'm like, I told you, I think we were messaging and I called myself a serial pivoter, but I'm also like serial self-improvement and professional improvement, and development, and wanting to just constantly learn. And like, my commitment to myself is to be my best self every single day.
Mhm.
And I don't, every day I don't know what that means. My best self
Mhm.
tomorrow is going to be different than it looked like today. And I think it's okay to know that, but I know that I'm always wanting to learn something new. I will always raise my hand to say yes to things, even if it puts me out of my comfort zone.
Yeah.
Um, because I want to experience, I want to have, just different interactions with different people, and just learning, and just connecting with the world. And honestly, and um, just having lots of different experiences.
Well, and you were mentioning earlier about making mistakes, the old saying, none of us would be able to walk if we didn't fall down.
Yep.
That's the way we learn is by making mistakes. But so many people are so afraid to make mistakes. And
Yeah.
it's like, just try something. The world isn't going to come to an end. But I was going to mention earlier when you talked about, getting the itch every once in a while. The great thing about owning your own business is when you do feel that itch coming, it's a lot easier to pivot because you can pivot within your business. I've
Yeah.
owned my business now for 27 years. I started in 1996, but it's never been the same
Yeah.
business. It's always the same name, but it's constantly evolving. And partly because it started out in web development, and the web is constantly evolving, but it's mostly because that's the way that I am, and I get bored easily, and I'm
Yeah.
always wanting to learn new things and do new things. And
Yep.
it sounds like you're a lot the same.
Yeah. And being in like, kind of like a little bit of a controlled container to be able to do that.
Yeah.
But that's the thing, is like give yourself the flexibility to like
Mhm.
to move within that, and change things, and do things. We don't have to be like, and believe me, I like structure. I'm
Mhm.
actually quite a structured, and very organized person, but I think just within that, I need to have
Yeah.
flexibility, and
Well,
to,
and that's great though, because you recognize that you can use that structure to contain yourself,
right.
you
Yeah, yeah,
know?
yeah. I know.
I struggle with I struggle with that container.
Yeah.
That's one of the things that I really have to work on is uh, organization and, structure and stuff because my natural position is flying by the seat of my pants.
Oh
I
my
don't know
gosh.
where I get that from, but
Yeah. I mean, that's fun too. And
Yeah.
you
So,
know,
but I want people to understand that when we're talking about pivoting, and that this is why I mentioned, within your own business, and you're evolving through all these pivots, you're evolving and you're learning more. So we're not talking about the people who have a job and quit a job and have a job and quit a job and they're aimless and they just, you know,
yeah,
not that there's anything wrong if you have a job and quit a job for whatever reason, but there's some people that just constantly do that and it serves no purpose.
yeah.
They just can't keep a job or whatever. So we're not talking like that. We're talking about self-improvement, evolution, understanding yourself. And I guess the older we get, the more we understand ourselves. But I think a lot of people don't want to listen to that voice inside.
Oh my gosh. That's yeah. And I think it's funny that you say the voice inside. Like I always say, like I have a strong intuition. Like I know what that itch is. I know what things mean and when things like a thought comes in of like, you should do this. And
Mhm.
how often do we just immediately talk ourselves out of it immediately? Oh, well, I can't do that, or because of this, and we have all these excuses. But
Uh-huh.
I will like, look into that and be like, well, what would that look like? And I get
Yeah.
curious, and I think there's a curiosity to those kind of pivots that we're talking about. But like another thing is another way to look at this because it comes along with like transformation and growth. I
Mhm.
like to think of it as like calibrating. And like when we talk about knowing your truth and knowing your foundation and knowing what you want, when you can set that and you know what you want to get out of your day or your life
Yeah.
or your year, when you pause, you can like take a temperature of where you're at. Like, where am I at on this? And
Yeah.
you may need to pivot or recalibrate back to make sure that you're aligned with that because we all get off course a little bit. And that's where
Mhm.
that hiccup was. I got off course a little bit. I
Mhm.
needed to settle in and just kind of recalibrate where I was to make sure that I was back on the right, path. And it could be a big pivot. It could be little small
Mhm.
pivots, little, tiny tweaks, they say, of just making sure that you're in alignment with your purpose and your
Yeah.
truth. And we get so, I don't know, I think we get clouded by falling into what other people want us to do or
Yes.
what other people want us to
Mhm.
do. And you get lost in that and you lose your way a little bit and
Yeah.
just need to recalibrate. And
And that, in my opinion, that's why a lot of people who are really unhappy, not everybody, but a lot of people, especially the people that I work with who are unhappy, it comes back to that they either don't know what they really want,
yeah,
or they're afraid to go for it, or they just do what everybody else is doing. I tell my clients who are in business, I'm like, it's your business. You can make it anything you want. So why are you building it exactly like these people over here? Because if you don't want to live the life they have, why are you building the business the way they're building it?
yeah,
There's some, especially now with the web and all SaaS applications and everything. There's so many different ways that within a specific business, there are all kinds of different ways that you can build that business so that it fits your personality.
yeah,
Like we spoke about earlier, I don't like having a big staff. The most I've ever had is 6 people, but they basically were people who could work on their own because I don't like managing people, and so I know that about myself.
yeah,
And so one of the worst decisions I've made in my whole time was a hiring decision that I made in a time of crisis when my mother was first getting sick and I just moved in with her. So, you know, never make big decisions when you're in the midst of a crisis. And then, of course, don't make a decision that would, like myself, I made the decision that would have been the one that I never would have made.
yeah,
Um, but anyway, point is, like in my book, Disrupt Your Now, that's what I start out with is you. What do you want out of life?
yeah,
And everybody starts with money. or they start with their house or their car. And not that there's anything wrong with money, because I love money, you know, but that's where everybody starts. And it's kind of like just how we're raised and how school is and everything. They start, how big of a house, what car, blah, blah, blah,
Yeah.
instead of thinking about, what do I want my life to look like? What do I want my day to look like?
Mhm.
My whole thing is, if you could design your ideal day, what would it be like? You
Yeah.
know, and then try to back into how you could build a business that helps you fulfill that
Right.
dream.
And everything then when you're doing following your bliss and you're doing what you love, all
Mhm.
that comes into place and all that comes into alignment. And there's a lot of work around doing that though. Like you
Yeah,
have to really sit with yourself and do the homework and pull that out
it's
if it
hard.
doesn't come naturally. I've taken tons of courses and,
Mhm.
little freedom lifestyle boot camps and different things like that and but they've helped like just frame things in a way
Yeah.
for you to look at things differently. And I've come out of a lot of things that courses that I've taken, books that I've read, and it's never, I think people get into those things thinking like, oh, I'm going to be told exactly what to do and
Yes.
how to do it. And I'm going to be told who I am.
Mhm.
Actually, no, you're not. You have to, if you don't do the work and if you don't turn that book into your own, um, put some action around it and take
Yeah.
some inspired action out of it and put things into place out of things that you learn in your own way, then
Mhm.
the book you read. And like, I've gotten caught up in this. I've had years where I've read, oh my gosh, like numerous books. And it's like, I've paused and actually I'm like, no, wait a second. I'm just putting one book down and picking up another. What am I
Yeah.
doing with this? What am I learning from it? And how am I going to implement and like, just, I think we need to pause more and reflect. And when you do that, then all that stuff comes up and then you learn
Yeah.
too. And then also just kind of trusting, like, I don't like, even if you feel like you don't know how to articulate or put words to your purpose,
Mhm.
having trust. You're here for a reason.
Yeah.
You have magic in you that you probably inspire and influence people and don't even know it.
Yeah.
Like that's something I've realized too. There's been people in my life that I've had experiences with that I've gone back just to tell them, like, hey, I don't know if you know this, but this experience like impacted me in a really positive way. And that usually shocks them or like, oh my gosh, I didn't even think about it. But I think it's like there's a responsibility for us to remind others that they're great too and to kind
That
of
is so nice that you do that, because very, very few people think to do that. And
yeah,
or they might go, "Oh, I need to tell so and so this," but they don't. So that's awesome that you go back and tell them that.
it's important. And
Yeah.
I think that I don't know, again, like we have greatness that we don't see in ourselves all the time.
Mhm.
And so hearing other people and kind of, I don't know, be that person to tell somebody that
Yeah.
they're
I
great.
love that. Be the make somebody else's day awesome.
Yeah.
You know, you talked about being quiet. I think that's one thing that makes it harder for most people now is there is so much going on around us all the time that it's really hard for people to just be quiet and just be still. It's like they feel like they've got to be looking at their phone or they got to have a radio on or this, that, and the other. I was reading something. Where did I read this today? Something I read, and they put these people in a room and they were going to have to sit there by themselves for X number of minutes. There was nothing in there, no sound or anything, but there was something like a paintball gun or something in there. And they're like, anyway, so one of the guys literally like shot himself with the paintball gun or whatever it was, like 80 times in the time span because he couldn't stand sitting there with
know?
no interaction and no sound, and what it wasn't like it was a soundproof room, but just in there, didn't have a phone they could mess with, this, that, and the other. And I
Yeah,
just thought, oh my God, that's hilarious. But you think about, we're all so overstimulated.
we are.
And
Yeah,
when we do learn how to sit down, be still, listen to ourselves. Do you meditate?
I do every day, every
Yeah.
morning. I have an hour and a half, sometimes 2 hours every morning of
Mhm.
like my time,
Yeah.
just meditating, journaling, reading. And I've had that for, gosh, so much of my life, because I recognize that if you don't carve that time out in the morning, then it gets
Yeah.
taken away from you. And so I've
Mhm.
made sure to incorporate that into every day for me. But yeah,
That's great. I meditate, but I also do a lot of active meditation, like some people are runners,
yeah,
and I hate to run, but I love to mow the grass with a
yeah,
push mower. And we have like really steep hills and several acres. And so I'm just mowing hours and hours but my mind just gets in the zone and it's like totally blank. And before
yeah,
I know it, an hour is going by and I have no clue, and it's a way to disconnect. So for people, if you go, oh, some people are like, I could never meditate because it feels hard when you first
yeah,
do it, like to sit down but so find something like I said, like with me and the mowing or whatever, something that lets you kind of disconnect your brain. But
yeah. And walking, I walk multiple times a day, and on,
mhm.
like, I won't bring my phone. And on those walks, you have so many like insights and aha moments too that come to you.
Yeah.
There's a lot, like, I'll take a break and go on a walk, and I'm excited to get back to write down what I was like, oh my gosh, I just had this like really good idea. But things kind of come to you when you just quiet. And I do that with mountain biking. So my husband
Mhm.
and I, we mountain bike, and like on every ride I have, I will write something, a book, a blog post, something about this. But there's so many things related to like mountain biking and like where
Mhm.
we ride, related to like work and how our day goes and the obstacles that we come across, and
Yeah.
having to roll over things. And
Mhm.
there's so many, being prepared, like switching gears on your bike and like just making sure you're in the right gear, who you're riding with,
Mhm.
there's so many like just direct things to the everyday that like, but when I'm riding, I think about that all the time of just
Yeah,
like,
the parallels.
totally.
And I, shoot, now I forgot what I was gonna say. I was gonna say I always have my best ideas either from while I'm mowing or something, or during the night while I'm asleep.
Oh my
And
gosh,
I'll
yeah.
wake up with this brilliant idea and I have to like put it in my phone or write it down or
I do
whatever.
all
That
the
is
time.
and because here's the thing, y'all, people listening, if you're sitting there trying to force yourself to think of a solution, you're never going to do it because your
Yeah,
brain is just going to revolt. You have to give your brain that quiet time
yeah.
for it to like settle down and be able to do its thing.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I have in the shower, I used to solve problems in my sleep early when I was doing production art. I used to do like really intense color separations that in Photoshop at the time, and back in the early 2000s, before Photoshop is what it is today and really
Mhm.
easy for people to like clip out backgrounds. I used to have to like really like think through how to like separate colors and how is this going to print, and think through. And I would leave work at the end of the day with an unsolved problem. And I would go, okay, I know tomorrow, like you have to step away and you have to give yourself time
Mhm.
to step away. I would dream a solution and I would come in and I would get excited about it. I'd come in the next
Yes.
day, like, I know the answer, I know what to do. And it would just like come like that. But
Isn't that wild though?
love it. It just,
I love
it
it
gets
too.
me thinking about it actually.
Yeah, I mean, our brains are they can be our worst enemies if we let them,
Oh my
if
God.
we only listen to the negative
Yeah.
stuff. And so that's another thing. There's so many people that, sorry, I have something in my eye. so many people that it's like the negative thoughts in their mind constantly. I'm
Yeah.
so stupid, or I could never do this, or whatever. And I mean, I have somebody close to me that I love very much, but from the minute they get up to the minute they go to bed, they're basically everything is negative. You
Yeah.
know, not that they want to be unhappy, but their whole talk cycle is
Yeah.
why they're not good enough and this, that, and the other. And I'm like, when you are telling yourself that 24 hours a day, I'm like, why do you think sports teams spend millions of dollars just to have mindset coaches,
Oh my God.
for the
Yeah.
athletes? It
Yeah.
it's so important to have a positive mindset. And that doesn't mean to not be realistic though.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I agree. Yeah, that's hard. And it's hard to watch, but if you
Yeah.
don't know and you don't, all you can do is kind of encourage people and coach people
Mhm.
um and just, I don't know, again, like boost and make suggestions of like
Yeah.
listening to positive
And
affirmation.
that's what I do. I've gotten so when I catch them, I'll be like, not all the time, but just like a general reminder, like, wait a minute, because it'll sometimes they'll say things and it's like not even related to the situation they're in. I'm like, wait a minute, blah, blah, blah. And then they're like, oh, and most of the time they don't even really know they've said it.
Well,
But
we go into this like operating on, just these subconscious like
yeah.
and beliefs and patterns that we've created in
Mhm.
our
From
lives.
childhood on,
Oh my God.
and
Yeah.
so we all have to work to overcome those things. You've got 2 other people saying hi to you, Sharon Beyer, I guess is her name, and Mary Louise Wright. So,
Hello.
hey, y'all, thanks for joining us. Um, what do you for so I work with a lot of people who are in, like, the second half of their career. It's like they're getting close to retirement time, but they don't wanna retire. I love to work with people who can take their lifetime of experience and turn it into a lifestyle business,
Yeah.
basically. But so many of those people, no matter how successful they are, they're so afraid of making a change because they've been used to working in the big corporate world and, they have their little they know their lane and they stay in it, or they're working in a government agency. And so even though they know a lot, they're terrified. Do
Yeah.
you have any advice for people like that?
I think just like start small, start with something. Take
Mhm.
one tiny little step because I think that if you can get out of your own way and
Yes.
take one little, it could be the tiniest thing. It could be making a list of what you want to do tomorrow. It could be,
Mhm.
I think, just the smallest little action. But I think that one action will create a momentum and things will start to come into place. I think we oftentimes we want the outcome to be here tomorrow, or we want to plan it. We want to plan everything out and know exactly how it's going to be because that feels safe.
Yeah.
And I think that then what do? We get paralyzed and we don't do anything
Mhm.
because we don't know what's going to happen. But if you can take one small little action and let that kind of stack on top of another action. And again, it could be making a list of maybe you don't know what your lifestyle business is going to be yet. Maybe it's just
Yeah.
making a list of all the things that you enjoy doing, and
Yeah,
you're gonna
because first you gotta know what lifestyle you want before you can
totally.
figure out what you're gonna do. But that is such great advice to do one little thing each day because it's like interest, it compounds on itself.
It
So
does, yeah,
if you do one tiny little thing a day, at the end of the year, you've done 365 things instead of just sitting there and thinking about it and
yeah.
coming up with 0. So those 365 little things all added up together
And those
are
will all lead
huge.
you onto something, though that'll
Mhm.
lead you onto something new. And that's where fun comes in because you get to calibrate and you get to pivot into, you might meet somebody then that's going to shift
Mhm.
your focus or amplify something for you or bring something to light that you didn't think of. I think just Um, yeah, I think like just doing something. Yeah.
Yeah, and being open, that's also great advice, because most people that I work with end up, they think they know what they want to do, but they end up doing something that they never even dreamed they could do. Because
Yeah.
most people are still thinking about the lane they're in. So
Yeah.
they're
Yeah.
like, okay, I'm doing whatever. So when I get out, I can do this as a consultant or whatever. And so it's so much fun though to just dream. And like we were talking about the show, Ask What If.
Yes.
To
I
me,
love
that's the most
what if. What if
powerful
is my
question in the
favorite.
world.
I
What
love
if?
that. You
Yeah.
know what I just finished have you heard of The Artist's Way? I'm sure you have.
Hmm.
Julia
Yeah.
Cameron. I just did that. I bought that book years ago. I think it was 2015. I bought the book. And like many stories that I've heard of other people, I started it. I don't even remember if I think the only thing that I took out of it was probably journaling every day. But
Hmm.
I never did all the exercises. I didn't follow the 12 weeks that it,
Yeah.
but I 12 weeks ago or 13 weeks ago now because I'm finished, I joined a group of women that we all did it together.
Oh,
And
cool.
it was, I would highly recommend that, especially too if you're trying to find something that you want to do new, and don't get turned off by the word artist way in it, because we are all artists, we're all creators, we're all creating something, and so it's I would highly recommend it for anyone that kind of might feel lost or wanting to change directions, because talk about like really diving in and looking in and going
Hmm.
deeper, finding out what you want and what you want to do and what brings you joy, and all of that. That 12-week course will do it, and doing it with a group of people too was really awesome.
That's great advice, and it is a really good book. I do highly recommend it. And also, y'all could read my book, Disrupt Your Now, and the workbook, Disrupt My Now.
Yes.
You have somebody else, Mary Ellen says,
Oh,
"Hi,
that's
Jennifer, me and
Mom and
Grandma think you're doing
Priscilla.
it."
They're doing a great
Who is
job.
it?
Look at that, my
Who is she?
thank you. That's my mom.
Hi, Mom. I figured she was.
My
Hey,
biggest
Mama.
fan.
That's
That's so
awesome.
cute. Thanks, Mom.
Well, okay, so tell everybody out there how they can learn more about your company and how they can connect with you, and also remind them of the kind of companies that y'all like to work with, just in case there's somebody listening who would be a good fit.
Yeah, so look us up, Lucid Studio. Website is lucid-together.com. And we say that we are better together. And so we work with companies and brands that are or aspiring to do of benefit to people, pets, and the planet. And so CPG companies that need help with branding, packaging, really full service agency. So anything to promote your brand or bring packaging to life or anything like that. So
I love it. And
yeah.
then they can connect with you on LinkedIn, right?
Yes, yep,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Well, thank you so much for joining me. This has been a lot of fun talking with you and learning about your journey. And
Oh my
now I'm motivated to go do more meditation. And like I said, I do most of mine now active meditation, and I do
That's great. Yeah.
short regular meditation. But in the winter when I can't mow, I need to start doing longer. So, all right,
Awesome.
thanks, Jennifer.
Thank
See you
you.
later. See
Bye-bye.
y'all next week. Bye.